Hi, I've been asked to do a video on these LDCs for Daisy air guns. They'll work on 880s, they'll work on 922s, they'll work on just about any of the 880 variants to include the 1977. I'm not sure about the 901s or the 35s. I presume they will. I'm assuming they use a similar type barrel shroud, so if so, they should work. So in any case, this LDC design can be found on Thingiverse. There's several different configurations, there's different lengths, there's different diameters, and there's different bore sizes. So there's a small and a large bore size. The small size works perfectly well with 177 caliber. I have used it on 22, but I've also made a little bit larger bore size for uses with 22 to provide just a little bit more clearance. So these were designed to be printed vertically so that no supports are required. So I don't print any of the pieces of this LDC using supports. So this should be printed vertically, just like this orientation, and it should not require supports. So that's one of the pieces. There's an end cap, which also should be printed large diameter down vertically, should not require supports. There's the muzzle adapter, which again should be printed vertically with threads up, should not require any supports. And then there's the shroud, also printed vertically, should not require any supports. With that being said, just after printing, the post-processing that I use is to basically flame out the baffles. That way, if there's any stringing, there's any blobs, there's any artifacts left over from the printing process, we can vaporize most of those with like a torch lighter just by quickly running the torch lighter through the different baffle holes. Once I do that, I just simply wipe off any slag or any debris. Then I'll take a half-rounded file and run it through the baffles to remove any slag or any zits or any artifacts left from the printing process and burning out any strings or artifacts with a lighter. Then simply inspect the bore, make sure it's clear. There's nothing that's sticking into the diameter of the bore. Kind of blow it out. Once it's clear and good to go, you're ready for assembly. So the first thing I do is order some black felt. You can use any color felt, doesn't matter. I got this last batch at Walmart. You can buy it off Amazon, just anywhere. It's really cheap. Then the next thing to do, you want to take an end cap, push it onto the end of your baffle stack, lay it on your felt, because you're going to want to wrap this from this ID and this OD till it's flush with this major OD. So the major OD is what your shroud mates up against. So we don't want the felt to extend beyond this, nor do we want it to extend over it on either the end cap or the base. So I've gone ahead and marked and cut a piece of felt here. Usually these come in like 10 by 12 sheets. So you'll take a full sheet, you put your end cap on it, line it up where you want to start your wrap, take a Sharpie or something, mark where the end should be, and simply take scissors and cut with your mark. After you do that, you'll end up with a piece that looks like this. Usually you can see you can get 2 LDCs from one sheet. And this is for the longer stack. For the shorter stack, you might actually get 3. So what I'll do is put the end cap on, line up the felt, and try to roll it evenly and tightly over the baffle stack. Well, that's not going to want to stay there, so I'll take little pieces of painter's tape and put it on the felt to hold the roll in place, just like that. Then you can simply remove the end cap, take your shroud. There's holes in the shroud and there's holes in the base of the baffle stack. And it does matter the orientation. One hole's higher than the other. So you want to make sure you line those up correctly. Then take your baffle stack and slide it over. Sometimes it helps to turn it in the same direction as the felt right. So that felt goes up in the baffle or the shroud. Then you push it in, make sure your holes are lined up. Find your holes in your end cap, line them up, and you've got your LDC. The next thing you're going to want to do is take some small screws. I use 3mm by 4.8mm well locks. Bought them off Amazon. They're cheap. You'll get enough to do quite a few LDCs. It requires 4 per LDC. So you just simply line them up your holes. Take your screwdriver and run it in. You can kind of get them started by hand sometimes. Having a magnetic tip screwdriver is a huge advantage. And there you go, your LDC is assembled, ready to go. Now, you can also use carbon fiber tubing instead of a 3D printed shroud. So if you order a length of carbon tubing, you can get the diameter off the Thingiverse design and order a piece of carbon fiber. So this one's made out of carbon fiber. It's going on an 822 project gun I built. So how I make the carbon fiber shroud is I'll take the 3D printed shroud, I'll set the carbon fiber up there, see about where the length is, take some painter's tape, wrap the carbon fiber around where the end of the length of the shroud should be, then take a Sharpie, mark where the end of the carbon fiber shroud should be. You can take any fine tooth saw like a hacksaw and then cut your carbon fiber tube to length. So once you've cut the tube to length, if it's not a perfectly square cut, you can take a piece of sandpaper, put it on a flat surface and sand it down till it's nice and square. Once you've cut your carbon fiber to length, you'll take your 3D printed shroud, set them down. You can take a drill bit through just the shroud. Don't have your end cap or your baffle stack in there. Run your drill bit through the 3D printed shroud as a jig, if you will, to find out where to drill your carbon fiber so that your holes line up in your end cap and your baffle stack. So you drill one, flip them both over, repeat the process for the other side, and then you're done. Then you've got a carbon fiber shroud for your LDC. It looks good. It's a little heavier, makes it feel a little more solid. It's also, of course, going to be stiffer than a 3D printed shroud and hold up a little better, although I've never had a problem with the 3D printed shrouds. So that gets your LDC made. The next thing to do is you've got your barrel. So on the daisies, they come with this front sight, which is an insert into this rolled steel barrel. So you'll have to remove the front sight. And what I'll do is just take a little block of wood, give it a little pop, and it'll come out. Usually it took 2 or 3 tries there because I don't want to slam it really hard and break it. You just want enough force on it to make it pop out. And then you take your insert, and before you put it on, you want to take a 4mm tap. You can get these at Harbor Freight, local hardware store, local automotive parts store. Just, you need a really cheap set. I mean, we're threading 3D printed material, not hardened steel or anything, so a cheap set's fine. Then we already got existing holes that were printed into the part that are sized for the tap, ready to go. So all we have to do is run the tap in by hand. Don't need any kind of tool. And then once we run that tap in, we'll do every hole for the adapter and simply take a 4mm set screw. I believe these are either 6 or 8mm long. Either 6 or 8mm will work. And we'll run it in about halfway. We don't want to run it in too far because it will protrude through and will block the barrel shroud from being able to be fully inserted if it's too deep. And what these serve is they lock the muzzle adapter to the shroud once it's installed. There's a flat or a solid piece in the inset for the shroud that lines up with the sight insert recess on the shroud. So you'll line these two up, then you'll slide that on. It may not seat fully because it's a very tight fit. You can take a 3D printed shroud base, which I have these, the model for these on the Thingiverse page without the baffle stacks. You can thread them on to protect the threads and then use the screwdriver backwards to fully seat that muzzle adapter. The reason it's tight is so that there is no slop and to make sure it's concentric with the barrel shroud. Also on these adapters, the ID that the barrel itself slides into is much tighter than the factory sight insert. So a common mod on the daisies are to wrap your barrel with 1 or 2 rounds of electrical tape so that you get a tighter fit in your front sight insert. With this muzzle adapter, you're not going to have to do that. It's a very tight fit. It's going to require you to tap it on. And again, you want to do that by protecting the threads, by printing out just the threaded portion of the baffle stack to protect the threads so that you can take a hammer or a screwdriver and tap it on. You don't have to beat it on, but it will probably require some tapping. And then once it's fully seated, you can take a Allen wrench and tighten your set screws down to the shroud. Now we are working with plastic 3D printed piece here, so we don't want to over tighten these and strip those little threads out. Just run it in until it's nice and snug. That's enough. And then stop and repeat for all the different threads. But once this is on there, now you've got an adapter for your LDC. And these need to be screwed all the way down to where the base of the LDC mates with the shoulder of the muzzle adapter. And once you do that, it's ready to go. So as soon as the weather permits and time permits, I'm going to go out and do an actual shooting of these and show you guys how they work. Now these probably will affect your point of impact, so you'll want to sight in with the muzzle adapter or the LDC on. And I'm assuming that removing and reinstalling this adapter may also affect the point of impact. And that's going to be included in the video I do where I actually am shooting with these LDCs. We're going to shoot without them, look at our groupings. I'm going to install it, shoot again, show how it affects the point of impact. We'll adjust the sights to the LDC's point of impact. We'll remove the LDC, shoot, and of course it should be different than with the LDC. Then we'll reinstall the LDC, see if it comes back to where it originally was sighted. And if nothing else, we'll learn if we have to leave the LDC on there or if we can remove it and reinstall it without it affecting the... I had to go get a gun and kind of give you a quick demonstration before the next video of how these LDCs work. This is a Winchester 1977 converted over to 22 caliber. I put a 922 barrel in it. So just for y'all's information, if you go out on eBay looking for a 922 to salvage the barrel out of to put into a 1977, there are 2 different configurations of 922s out. The older models use the clamp down style barrel, so there's actually a transfer port in the hole in the bottom of the barrel. You want to avoid those models. What you want is the later 922s that use the press in barrel. It's still a brass 22 caliber barrel. It's the same OD as the factory 880s and 1977 barrels, so it's a direct replacement. That's what's in this gun. They work great. Now I do go for maximum power on my guns because I primarily use my guns for hunting small game, and I do pump them 20 times. And this particular gun makes 25 FPE, or foot-pounds of energy, as a 22, shooting JSB Monster 30 or 25 grain pellets. So it's extremely loud for a multi-pump gun. So a LDC makes a huge difference. Now you just saw me pump this gun 20 times. You could probably see about the last 5 pumps. The amount of force required increases pretty significantly. You may even see this pump handle flexing some. I've built some steel pump handles which actually make the pumping easier and have no flex. But this gun's 100% factory except for the 22 caliber barrel, and when you are pumping this many times and building that kind of pressure, the factory abutment pin will bend. So in all my guns, I've replaced the factory abutment pin with oil hardened drill rod. So I'm going to shoot this gun. It's empty, no pellet, just so you guys can get an idea of the sound. Video makes it really does not do justice to the LDCs. I've watched many videos of powder burners with suppressors, and you can tell there's a difference, but it really, without experiencing it firsthand, video again does not really show you the level of sound suppression these things have. But just for the sake of being complete, I'm going to go ahead and shoot it. Okay, that's pretty significant. So now what we're going to do is repeat that. But we're going to install the LDC we made. And that's one thing I like about the threaded adapters, is you can make several different configurations of these LDCs. Again, longer, shorter, fatter, thinner, and see which one you prefer as far as sound suppression, length, and diameter. So being able to simply thread one on, thread one off is pretty handy. All right, here we go. It's going to be better. Again, video doesn't do it a whole lot of justice, but that was a huge difference firsthand. And it really helps when you're hunting. So it's still loud enough game up close, they're going to spook. But if you're shooting at animals, squirrels, say 30 yards away, they will take notice, but they won't get nearly as spooked, and they'll come back out much quicker when you're utilizing an LDC versus not utilizing an LDC. I can tell you that from first-hand experience. So I really like these. They've worked really well for me, and I hope you guys can benefit from it as well. And I've got a bunch more 880 and 1977 mods, including power mods, accuracy mods, wood furniture, steel pump handles coming out in the future. But I know a lot of people, you guys really like the metal pump handles, but I tell you what, for hunting, believe it or not, the plastic pump handles, well, yeah, they flex more, but as long as you get a full cycle and a full lock, closed lock on the pump handle, it doesn't really matter. And they are actually a good bit quieter when you're repumping in the field. So I kind of have mixed emotions about them. I mean, the overall quality feel and weight of the gun is nice with them, but tactically, I have to give the edge to the plastic pump handles in the hunting scenario. So I love these guns, and I'll probably use both. So for some of my hunting guns, I may be using the newer design plastic handle, and then after season, it's just a pin, a couple screws and a pin swap over my metal handles for just plinking around. But anyways, thanks everybody. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and I'll do a lot more videos to follow. See ya.